Before I begin, please join me for a moment of silence for the courageous Iranian people who paid the ultimate price for freedom over the last 2 weeks. Thank you. The truth is now undeniable. The so-called Islamic Republic is not the government of Iran. It is a hostile occupying force that's hijacked our homeland. After invading 5 neighboring countries and sowing chaos across the region, this regime has invaded Iran itself, using foreign terrorists, Hezbollah fighters, Iraqi militias, and other mercenaries to slaughter the Iranian people. This is no longer mere repression. This is foreign occupation wearing clerical robes. Just as Saddam Hussein drowned the marshes in blood and Bashar al-Assad turned barrel bombs on his own children, Ali Khamenei and his thugs have committed mass crimes against the Iranian people and against all of humanity. And just like those other tyrannies, the Islamic Republic will fall, not if, but when. The world must hear this clearly. The battle in Iran today is not between reform and revolution. It is between occupation and liberation. And the Iranian people have already chosen their side. Their heads are bloodied, but unbowed. Yet the cost has been heartbreaking. The people of Iran are being slaughtered in the streets and in their homes by a regime that shows no mercy. More than 12,000 Iranians were massacred in 48 hours. One murder every 14 seconds. Khamenei's killers even hunted the wounded protesters in hospitals and executed them in cold blood. The regime collected piles of bodies with dump trucks and forced worried families to search unlabeled body bags. They refused to return bodies for burial without payment for the cost of the bullets that killed their loved ones. And where a family cannot pay up to several $1,000s, and most of them can't, they bury the dead in unmarked mass graves. And despite the lies you're hearing from the regime, its bloodlust has not diminished. The slaughter has not stopped. My brave compatriots, still holding the line with their broken bodies but unbreakable will, need your urgent help right now. Make no mistake, however, the Islamic Republic is close to collapse. Ali Khamenei and his thugs know this. That's why they are lashing out like a wounded animal, desperate to cling to power. The people have not retreated. Their determination has made one thing clear. They are not merely rejecting this regime, they are demanding a credible new path forward. They have called for me to lead. The bond between me and the Iranian people is not new. It's been with me since birth, and it cannot be broken. Even in exile, I pledged my life to the service of the Iranian nation. When Saddam Hussein invaded Iraq, I volunteered as a fighter pilot to defend my country against his invasion. Today, as my compatriots call on me for leadership, I reaffirm my lifelong pledge by stepping in to lead the movement that will take back our country from the anti-Iranian hostile force that occupies it and kills its children. I will return to Iran. I am uniquely positioned to ensure a stable transition. That's not my opinion. That's the verdict delivered loudly and clearly by the people in the face of bullets. Large sections of the army and security forces have already refused to participate in the killing of civilians. They have whispered their loyalty to me. Tens of thousands have already signaled their readiness to defect, and this process has been underway for months. What's clear is both the public and members of the military see me as a national figure who can unite all opposition forces from every background, ethnicity, Republican and monarchist, right, left, and everything in between. I have a comprehensive plan for an orderly transition which is ready to be implemented immediately. The Iranian people are taking decisive actions on the ground. It is now time for the international community to join them fully. Today, I ask the world to do 6 things. First, protect the Iranian people by degrading the regime's repressive capacity, including targeting the Islamic Revolutionary Guard leadership and its command and control infrastructure. Second, deliver and sustain maximum economic pressure on the regime, block their assets worldwide, target and dismantle their fleet of ghost tankers. Third, break through the regime's information blockade by enabling unrestricted internet access. Deploy Starlink and other secure communications tools widely across Iran, and conduct cyber operations to disable the regime's ability to shut down the internet. Fourth, hold the regime accountable by expelling its diplomats from your capitals and pursue legal enforcement actions against those responsible for crimes against humanity. Fifth, demand the immediate release of all political prisoners. Sixth, prepare for a democratic transition in Iran by committing to recognize a legitimate transitional government when the moment comes. Supporting the Iranian people is not an act of charity, nor is it unwarranted interference. Global stability itself depends on the removal of this regime. Its 47 years of exported terror, nuclear threats, and regional chaos must end. This does not require putting boots on the ground. The Iranian people's boots are already on the ground. They are the ones marching, sacrificing, and fighting for their freedom every single day. What they need from the world is resolute, targeted support to protect lives, amplify their voices, and hasten the collapse that is already underway. But let me be clear, with or without the world's help, the regime will fall. It will fall sooner, and more lives will be saved if the world turns its words into action. A free, democratic Iran will not be a source of endless crisis. It will be a pillar of peace, partnership, and prosperity for the Middle East and beyond. The choice is clear. Stand with the people now, or watch the cycle of instability continue. As I have said to my compatriots, the noble and courageous people of Iran, particularly the young generation, I speak directly to you. Know that you have commanded the world's attention and admiration. History itself stands in awe of your bravery and your sacrifices. You are the immortal guard of Iran. Continue the fight as you have done so far. Do not allow this regime to create the illusion that life is normal. After all the massacres, there is a sea of blood between us and the regime. The regime, through severe repression, killing, and cutting off communications, is trying to instill fear and terror in you and to make you despair of continuing the movement and struggle. But know that because of your steadfastness and fight, thousands of military and security forces have not gone to work so as not to participate in the repression. Save the name of all these criminals. They will be prosecuted for what they have done. Yet justice alone will not heal all the wounds, but it will open the door to healing and a national rebirth. As for the day after our victory, I have a clear plan for the transition to democracy. Millions of Iranians inside and outside Iran are united around these 4 core principles: Iran's territorial integrity, separation of religion and state, individual liberties and equality of all citizens, and the Iranian people's right to decide a democratic form of government. The end of the regime will mark the rebirth of one of the most accomplished civilizations in history for the future of Iran and its people. Iran is blessed with extraordinary human talent and vast natural resources. Our people are highly educated, producing one of the highest numbers of engineers in the world, with around 70% women. Today, the corrupt regime wastes these gifts. In a free Iran, our resources and ingenuity will drive prosperity at home and strengthen global supply chains, including America's. A free Iran will be a game changer for peace in the Middle East and for Iran's relations with the United States and the West. The Iranian people love America and hate this regime. After its collapse, instead of death to America, the world will find a nation that embraces America as a true friend. President Trump brokered the Abraham Accords, bringing peace between Arab nations and Israel. I see extending this idea to a free Iran through what we could call the Cyrus Accords, honoring our ancient heritage of tolerance and partnership. The possibilities are endless. There will be a peaceful, stable, and orderly transition. My team of experts have developed a plan for the first 100 days after the regime's collapse and the long-term reconstruction and stabilization of our country. It is backed by business leaders and provides a detailed roadmap for national recovery. Restoring economic confidence, ensuring that essential services continue uninterrupted, and laying the foundation for prosperity in a free Iran. A constitutional process will follow under international observation, allowing Iranians to finally determine their own destiny through free and fair elections. A free and democratic Iran that emerges will live at peace with our neighbors. It will be an engine of growth and opportunity in the region and the world. There are moments in history where the moral imperative for action is so strong that the weight of inaction becomes unbearable. This is one of those moments. The people of Iran have risen to reclaim their country. History will honor those who stand with them. Long live Iran. Thank you.
We're going to take a few questions. Some people have asked in advance, so I'm going to call some names. don't worry. And the Prince Reza Pahlavi will reply to them. I'm going to call firstly Ardavan, who's first from Iran International.
This moment, we have millions of Turkish right now. Sure that I'm asking in parts. سوال من در این لحظه اینه شما چه چیزی برای گفتن در این لحظه به ایرانیانی دارید که در حال مبارزه هستند؟
دیدیم که همیهنانمون با شهامت و شجاعت و با اتحاد و جمعیت میلیونی در خیابانها باعث عقب نشینی نظام شدند، به حالی که رژیم مجبور شد دست به سرکوب وحشتناکی بزنه و اون هم با استفاده از عوامل بیشتر خارجی تا عوامل خودش که خیلی حاضر نشدن برای سرکوب سر کار بروند. این نمونه و علامتی است از قدرت مردم و ضعف نظام. البته ما اکنون مواجه با شرایطی هستیم که نیاز به کمک هم داریم و برای همین هست که من به جامعه بین‌المللی هشدار میدهم که اگه بخواید جلوی جنایت بیشتری رو بگیرید، اگه بخواید جان کمتر افراد از بین برود و این حکومت زودتر سقوط کند به نفع آزاد شدن مردم ایران، بهتر است که سکوت را جایگزین عمل بکنید و فراتر از صحبت و سخن عملاً از این مردم حمایت بکنید که یک فرصت واقعی برای پیروزی نهایی داشته باشند.
Can you introduce yourself? Excuse me, sir. Can you just introduce yourself then?
It's also an undeniable truth that when your father ran the country, there were executions, there was torture, there was secret police. What would you say to Iranians today who are concerned that under your leadership they would be swapping one dictator for another?
First of all, I let historians write history. I'm here to make history, not to write it. Second, you hear the Iranian people standing behind me and calling my name. This doesn't occur incidentally. They have known my track record. They know my unwavering commitment to democracy and human rights. This has been my position the day I started and remains my position to this day. They know they can trust me because they've never seen me waver from this. And ultimately, what I'm trying to make sure is the final element that will prove to the Iranians that are in full control of their own destiny, is to turn power back to them, a power that has been taken away from them by this regime, which we are fighting today. That's my commitment, and they can trust me on that.
Bloomberg. No, I've called Bloomberg, please. Is a gentleman or lady from Bloomberg? No? They asked a question. No, Reuters, please. Oh, there's a microphone just coming.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Riley Johnson from Bloomberg. Are you having any further conversations with Witkoff or the Trump administration?
Look, these are sensitive times, and I'm not going to discuss details of who I'm meeting with and what has been discussed. What I can tell you, however, is that there is strong support for the Iranian people, and I believe that President Trump is a man of his word, and ultimately he will stand with the Iranian people as he has said.
Lady from DW.
Thank you very much. I'm with Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster. Thank you so much. I have two questions. We saw a slide there saying Donald Trump help. What exactly does this mean? What do you hope Donald Trump to do? And my second question is regarding Europe and especially Germany. What do you hope for Europe does to support your cause? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Well, clearly, President Trump did say that if the regime was to hit the Iranian people hard, they will be faced with serious consequences. The Iranian people have taken his word as a man of his words, as I said. They know that unlike his predecessors that threw us under the bus one time, this president is not about to do the same thing. And that's very encouraging and empowering. Number two, you asked me about European countries. Look, we already are past the point of whether you should subscribe the IRGC as a terrorist organization or not. And frankly, I'm flabbergasted that there are still some countries that are not willing to take the next step, as if they are supposed to worry about how the regime will retaliate. This regime is on its last leg. It's about to collapse. And I think the world, especially the democratic free world, that champions freedom and human rights and equality of citizens, at the face of this regime brutal repression, should act now. I called for them to start acting as opposed to talking. We need your help. We need your action. We need to take all the steps that I've indicated in my opening remarks, all those 6 elements. Anything that can be done in that direction is a moral boost, and beyond moral boost, an actual act of support for a defenseless society and civilians that, as you can see, have been treated in the worst possible way. And the only hope they have is that their fight for freedom, their sacrifices, will be less loss of life based on your action to expedite this regime's collapse. That's what the Iranian people are expecting from you. And let me reiterate, as I said again, we're not waiting for you to act to continue our fight. We are. But imagine how much more we can protect more innocent lives from dying by acting and helping us today. These are critical moments that are game changers, not just for us Iranians, but for the whole world. This is what we need from you, so help us.
Reuters. Microphone over here, please.
Thank you. Humaira Pamuk from Reuters. In an interview a couple of days ago, President Trump actually expressed some doubts about your support inside Iran. How are you planning to win him over, convince him that you do have the support that you say you do? Also, you're talking about thousands of potential defectors, but the IRGC and other forces have hundreds of thousands. So how are you going to assert your control over this establishment? And are you, anytime soon, going to meet with President Trump? Are you making an active effort? Thank you.
President Trump has said that it's up to the Iranian people to decide, and I totally agree. I've always said it's for the Iranian people to decide. And I think the Iranian people have already demonstrated in great numbers who it is that they want them to lead to this transition. So I'm confident that I have the support of my compatriot, and it's for the international leaders to assess the fact on the grounds and see who is capable of doing that. I believe I can, and I have the Iranian people's support. And of course, if anybody in the world is willing to help the Iranian people achieve that goal, that's what I'm trying to do, to help them liberate themselves and attract as much support as I can internationally to be behind the Iranian people this time and on the right side of history. Now, as far as the defection goes, this campaign has started months ago. We started this, in fact, I announced it in another press conference I had in Paris a few months ago. Some of you might have heard about it, at which point we established a system whereby people who want to defect or want to access us or want to indicate their interest to join with us have a secure means of communicating their intentions to us. Since then, tens of thousands have applied. Many of them are from the security forces in Iran, police force, military, IRGC, and we are vetting them as we're speaking. And the mechanism for defection does exist, but most importantly is the principle of having an exit strategy. And on that I've said, anyone whose hand is not soiled in the blood of the Iranian people will survive regime change. We're not talking about de-Baathification. We're not talking about the disaster of post-Saddam Hussein, post-Gaddafi collapse. We're not going to have a failed state. And for me to be able to guide a smooth transition, I'm counting on security forces to be the element that keeps the country secure, protects people's lives and their livelihood, and be part of the solution. As a result, we have already seen people indicating their cooperation. We have already seen elements that refuse to be used as an instrument of repression, which is why the regime is now, as we speak, importing elements from outside the country to be the instrument of repression, as they are running out of their own forces to do that for them inside Iran. And all of this is the indication of the beginning of that collapse. Hopefully, by more support from the outside world, by a determined strike on the regime's elements that are the instrument of repression, as I stated in my opening remarks, in my opinion, that will expedite the process and will also increase the number of defections to be more rapid, so that we are not faced with remnants and pockets of resistance as much as possible. There's never going to be 100% defection, but there comes a point where the regime sees it's futile, and hopefully by then Khamenei will be joining Bashar in Moscow and will be rid of him.
This gentleman here.
So, good morning. Thank you. Ben Leo from GB News in London. In London, sir, in England, we have Iranian sleeper cells on their way to the Israeli embassy accused of trying to blow up the embassy. We have a former Iranian government minister living in North London, living in a council house, actually, who supported the fatwa on Salman Rushdie, praised Soleimani, so on and so on. Why is it in Britain's interests, and indeed the West, for this Islamic regime to fall, please?
No, I'm sorry, could you repeat it? I want to make sure I understood your question. Could you repeat it, please?
We have lots of Iranian sleeper cells and activity in London.
Right.
3 people were arrested trying to blow up the Israeli embassy. Some months ago, there's a former government minister living in North London who supported Soleimani, backs the fatwa on Rushdie. We have lots of Iranian activity in the UK connected with the regime here in Iran. Why is it in Britain's interests and the West's for this regime to fall?
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked the question because, in fact, one of the topics that I raised in some discussions I had the last time I was in London with former prime ministers was exactly to explain to them the mapping of every instrument that the regime is using under Khamenei's direct supervision through so-called centers through which they antagonize British citizens and, of course, many of those sleeper cells that you indicated. It doesn't stop in England, by the way. They are in America as well. So we're trying to explain to various governments the whole methodology that the regime is using with assets they have on the ground in respective countries, not to mention money laundering that goes on in many countries, including in Great Britain. So there are many ways that they can push back against that and protect not only the citizenry of whether it's Great Britain or America, but in what way it connects to why we need to do that ultimately by putting an end to the regime. And one thing that is now becoming even more clear, and the fact that the regime could be threatening the world as a last gasp, we should not allow this regime to catch a second wind and be able to do further damage, which is why the strike is not just needed to help the Iranian people overcome this unfair disadvantage, but it's also one way to completely dismantle the regime's aspect of threatening and cut off the chain of income that it uses to fund all of these operations, including the sleeper cells, which is why I'm also calling for any means to cut off the lifeline to the regime, which is its revenue from whether it's oil exports or whatever other means of income that they have. We need to dry the well that funds terrorism once and for all against the Iranian people and the world.
So, hello. Dan Rivers from ITV News in the UK. 2 US aircraft carriers are heading, we understand, to the Gulf, and Donald Trump has said help is on its way, but they may take up to 10 days to get there, and meanwhile more and more people are dying. Are you losing faith in President Trump?
I believe the president is a man of his word, as I said before. How many days it might take, who knows, hopefully sooner than later. But as I said before, regardless of whether action is taken or not, we as Iranians have no choice to carry on the fight. We're halfway across the river. There's no turning back. We will continue. The quicker the action happens, the more lives can be saved, and the sooner we can see the regime's collapse. So timing is, of course, important. And I would still believe in the president's commitment that help is on the way.
But does he need to do something today, tomorrow, to help your fellow countrymen who are
Well,
dying.
I'm not the president's advisor. All I can say that Iranians are, of course, right now as we speak, witnessing the kind of massacre that has been unprecedented in human history. And this is why the urgency becomes quite clear. The timing, I leave it to the experts to decide. All I can say is the sooner the better.
Okay, I'm going to call now Ben Amini from Manitou. Microphone over here, please.
Sorry, there's too much bright light. I can't see who is where. Okay, now I see you.
Thank you. Thank you. علا از نخستین من بهنام امینی هستم از تلویزیون منوتو. از نخستین روزهای انقلاب ملت ایران منوتو گزارش‌های متعددی از شهروندان دریافت کرد مبنی بر اینکه بخشی از نیروهای سرکوب در خیابان‌ها ایرانی نیستند. این موضوع گمانه‌زنی‌های درباره حضور شبه نظامیان خارجی به ویژه از عراق و لبنان رو ایجاد کرده. موضوعی که امروز با گزارش رسانه‌های بین‌المللی درباره ورود دست کم 5000 نیروی مزدور از عراق برای سرکوب مردم ایران جدی‌تر شده. شما به عنوان رهبر انقلاب ملت ایران این گزارش‌ها رو چطور ارزیابی می‌کنید و حضور اونها نشانه چیست؟ سپاسگزارم.
ببین این دقیقاً علامتی است از ضعف نظام به مفهوم این که حتی عوامل خودی به اندازه کافی نداره برای سرکوب مردم و مجبور میشه از بیرون عوامل خارجی رو وارد بکنه. اگه این نظام امکاناتش رو داشت از نظر ایجاد رعب و ترس نیازی به وارد کردن عوامل خارجی نمی بود. این نشانه ضعفشونه و یأسشونه. البته توحششون مشهوده. چون میدونن که به آخرین طریق ممکن میخوان در مردم ایجاد تردید و ترس بکنن. فکر کنم مردم ایران بر این ترس غلبه کردن. اما وقتی که میبینیم این نظام دست به این کار میشه اینجاست که جامعه بین‌المللی باید متوجه بشه که این نظام حتی حاضر عواملی از خارج بیاره بر سرکوب مردم خودش و تا این حد بقیه هست. به هر حال من فکر کنم که دنیا امروز تصمیم گرفته برای عکس‌العمل نشان دادن و به زودی شواهدش رو خواهیم دید. A quick translation for those of you who don't speak Farsi. The question related to the regimes importing foreign elements into Iran to use as a mechanism of repression. And I said that this is a clear indication of the regime's weakness, that it cannot even count on its own forces to do the dirty job, and it has to resort to bring people from the outside. But reason more for the world to realize that as this desperation act of the regime to try to brutalize its own people as a last gasp effort cannot be left unanswered, which is why we're calling for the world to help us out.
Thank you. AFP, please.
Thank you very much. Sean Tandon with AFP. Nice to see you. Could I follow up? The momentum, you mentioned that that's in the hands of Iranians, but at what point is it too late for the intervention that you're talking about from President Trump? Could there be the sense that he's talked for over 10 days about help is on the way? Is there a sense that that could actually weaken the momentum? And specifically, you said at the beginning that there should be targeting of the Revolutionary Guards. Do you mean necessarily military strikes? How should the Revolutionary Guards be targeted? Thanks.
Right. It's never too late. Any fight for freedom doesn't have a deadline. Some of you reporters have deadlines to make your reports, but this fight doesn't have deadline. We will fight until we win. That is the national will of the Iranian people. We are all going to fight until we win. The only question is, what are the elements that can expedite it? And the immediate issue remains, what will hurt the regime most? By dismantling its apparatus of state terror and repression. A lot of it are the regime's military, paramilitary assets, mostly IRGC targets. So I'm calling for a surgical strike on those means. And I think it should be quite obvious to any of you. How do you weaken the regime's first and foremost means of instituting terror at home or terrorism abroad? And all ties, the targets are quite obvious. You're not going to hit a factory or a school or a hospital. Clearly, it's obvious what the targets should be. And the regime knows it. And that's exactly what those who have to decide how to decide what should be the legitimate targets will decide upon it. I think the Iranian people naturally say the people who hurt us the most should be the first one to be targeted. And I think that it should be quite obvious what should be done, in my opinion.
CBS. CBS here. Newsmax.
Good morning, sir. President Trump, up to this point, as we know, has decided not to take military action up to this point. He recently said that the killing has stopped, the planned executions have been halted. Is it your belief that American intervention, specifically military intervention, is necessary for this current movement today to be successful?
As I said in my opening remarks, the Iranian people are defenseless on the streets, unarmed against a regime that is unleashing on them with military weapons, AK-47s, assault cars, trying to rip them apart. And these are the odds that are not fair for a nation that is trying to overcome a regime by means of protesting peacefully on the streets. So the only way you can equalize the playing field is to help them have a better chance by weakening the regime's apparatus of repression. And these are mostly paramilitary institutions such as the IRGC. IRGC has been the main instrument of the regime's repression at home and terror abroad. So clearly, any strike on those entities will facilitate our task, will prevent more loss of lives, and will weaken the regime to a point that resistance will be futile. And we will try to encourage the regime's top echelon to ultimately depart, and the rest of society will know the regime is now totally crumbling, and we are prepared to collect the rest of them that will then rally around the people and stand with them, and hopefully we can enter the phase of transition. This is pretty much the scenario I see unfolding, but right now the decision is in the process of being made. I'm not going to speculate where it is right now. I'm not going to go follow every headlines that the news says in any news cycle. There's a lot that is happening and it's unfolding, and I'd rather not speculate. All I say is that if action happens, great. If it doesn't, we will still fight. The difference is it will be longer, costlier to us as a nation, more loss of life. And if the world does care about Iranian loss of life, then they better act and equalize the playing field for us, so we'll have a better chance to succeed with less casualties and less deaths in the process.
Thank you. Robert Tate from The Guardian. Mr. Pahlavi, you have said you have a detailed plan to lead the transition when the regime falls. Does that include establishing a constitutional monarchy on the basis of the one that your father was head of? Or do you foresee yourself as merely a transitional or temporary figure? And if so, how would that differ from the vow of Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, who said at the time of the revolution that he would simply be a transitional figure who would return to home and would retire from active politics only to set up a repressive theocracy? I mean, can you give a pledge that you would not be a second Ayatollah Khomeini?
I invite all of you after this press conference, and I have some of our experts available to you to explain all of this process in more details. One of the projects that I started a few years ago is called IPP, Iran Prosperity Project. This project is meant to address all of the issues, beginning with the first 100 days of how to manage the transition and stabilize the country. Midterm range anywhere between 6 months to 2 years of the rest of the normalization phase, and ultimately Iran's development down the line. Many documents have been generated with the help of legal experts, economists, and others to explain the chronology of events. But in relationship to your question, the way we have proposed the process to go is that the minute the regime collapses, the transitional government takes control. It works towards working in a process where we have its own judiciary branch, executive branch, legislative branch, and temporary parliament to oversee the elections of ultimately a national assembly, by first allowing the Iranian people, after about 4 months' time and many other debates, what is the form they would like to have as a future system of governance by means of referendum. Whatever the majority of the Iranian people decide, their representative in a constitutional assembly will be tasked with the responsibility to draft the constitution of this next system and present that constitutional project to the nation. The nation will have the opportunity to either ratify that proposed constitution, or if not, send it back to that constitutional assembly to rewrite it whatever way is fitted, again submit it to a secondary referendum. If in the second referendum there's still no consensus in majority, that constitutional assembly would dissolve. A new constitutional assembly will be created, and the process will again occur until finally we have a ratified proposed constitutional project. Once that happens, the first parliament of this new democracy will be elected, and the first government of that new system will be elected. If it's a republic, the president will be elected. If it's a monarchy, the prime minister will be elected. At that time, the transitional government dissolves itself and passes over and hands over the responsibility and the authority to the newly elected government based on that new constitution. This is the process from beginning to end. My role in all this is to lead this transition, help with the transitional structure, bring in all the elements that check all the boxes, because the country has to function. Day one, somebody has to pick up the trash. The train has to run on time. Basic services have to be provided. And at this stage, what we are inviting to have the quickest, smoothest transition, the maximum participation, on the one hand, of the military and paramilitary forces to play their role, and the civil society and the bureaucracy to be also in place to be able to address these things. So the majority of these instruments are already in place. And again, against the model of de-Baathification, we count on the majority of these people to remain in their jobs. We want to make sure that the world can help us, so the transitional government can pay salaries so people can maintain their jobs and do all of that. All of these things have been studied and explained in details. And as I said, I invite you to study this, I don't know, I think at least 170 pages of it. And as I said, we have our experts here who can further in detail explain to all of you what is it exactly that we propose. But in a nutshell, this is what we're doing, and this is the process you can expect and anticipate.
Thank you. On BFM.
My name is Antoine Hollard with BFM TV, French television. In France, the government has been criticized for being too soft by saying that the regime is too brutal. What is your message to the President of France, and what do you expect from him to put pressure on the regime? Thank you.
Again, I think the more we have solidarity from the international community, and France is a very important country. The relationship that France has had with Iran goes back centuries. I know many French people. I know their sympathy and their appreciation and love of Iranian culture and whatever it is that we stand for. And we had very good relationship in the past. The question is, what is the behavior of this regime? Does it adhere in any simple way to the very principles that France stands for: égalité, fraternité, liberté, laïcité, all those main principles that we're fighting for. So as the president of a democratic, secular, laïc nation, and as I said, one of the top principles is separation of church and state, I think the message should be clear, that the French people and its government stand on the side of people who seek the same liberties, the same human rights, the same freedom of religions, and the same protection of equality of citizens under the law that the French people enjoy in France. And we would like, as Iranians, to have it in Iran. So this is an important message. Are we continuing to go and appease a regime that is murdering its own people? Or is it time to abandon that path and now stand with the Iranian people and help them in their liberation? It's a very simple choice to make. And I advise the French president, if I may, to heed the call of millions of Iranians who turn towards the free world and say, what says you? Are you with us? And I hope the French president will say at the end of the day that he stands with the Iranian people.
Just a follow-up in French. Est-ce que vous avez été déçu par la réponse d'Emmanuel Macron, qui a été assez molle, entre guillemets, face à la répression brutale du régime?
Écoutez, comme je vous l'ai dit, c'est un crime contre l'humanité qui se passe en Iran actuellement. Ça dépasse toutes les limites de tolérance possible. ou de vouloir dire qu'on veut garder une ligne de communication pour des raisons de négociation diplomatique, etc. Je pense qu'on a déjà dépassé ce cas. Il ne reste qu'une seule solution. Éviter un massacre, éviter un bain de sang, éviter qu'un pays qui peut être un élément de stabilité, dans l'intérêt stratégique de l'Occident, une fois débarrassé de ce régime, mettra fin non seulement à la misère et la répression chez nous, mais en même temps profitera à ce que le monde puisse enfin respirer, soulagé, d'avoir pas un problème d'avoir encore à abriter d'autres réfugiés qui doivent venir sur le territoire européen déjà saturé, plus dans l'intérêt économique de ce pays, un pays qui peut vous fournir pendant des décennies au niveau énergique le nécessaire pour n'avoir pas à faire face à un blackmail chaque hiver par la Russie, par exemple, et l'Iran peut s'apprêter à ça. La question, c'est quel Iran? Je pense que le choix est évident. Donc, je pense que l'administration, que ce soit Emmanuel Macron ou d'autres chefs d'État européens, doivent regarder aujourd'hui quel est ultérieurement le meilleur intérêt de leur pays. Est-ce qu'un Iran libre sera mieux placé pour satisfaire leurs intérêts ou ce régime sanguinaire et terroriste? Simple question. Ce n'est pas à moi de répondre. Je vous dis tout simplement l'attente des Iraniens. Maintenant, c'est au président français ou d'autres leaders de décider finalement où est-ce qu'ils se placent.
The lady here. Would you just get a microphone?
Thanks, Michelle Kellerman with NPR. You mentioned that you wanted to see the Ayatollah in exile in Moscow, but the Russians are providing political cover for the Iranians at the UN. Today, Putin called Netanyahu to, present himself as a peacemaker. What do you think the Russians are doing? Do you think Trump could believe the Russians in this case?
Once the dust settles, as far as the Iranian people are concerned, and how in this game of geopolitics things sometimes unfold in one direction or the other, even Moscow is considering, what if this regime is no longer there? Then what? The Chinese are doing the same. They've been very quiet lately, not taking any position. So I'd rather not speculate, but simply say that a stable Iran, a strong Iran, a democratic Iran will not be antagonistic to anyone's interest, including Russia and China. What we want as Iranians is a fair deal. We don't want to be taken advantage of in lopsided, unfair deals that is against the national interest of Iran simply because a corrupt regime and weak is offering concessions left and right. We want to have a fair relationship with everyone. It's a normal interest for us to look towards the West, primarily because we are focused on democratic free nations to partner with in alliance and cooperation. And of course, our immediate neighborhood, which is why it is crucial for the world to understand that a different Iran will be committed to cordial relations with our immediate neighbors, with Israel, with the Saudis, and the rest of them in the Arab world, and the rest of the countries in our immediate neighborhood. And that extends to everybody else, provided, of course, that we as a sovereign nation are able to protect our liberties and our rights. And we'll deal accordingly and reciprocally with anybody respecting that, based on mutual respect. That's the end of the subject. So whatever we see now happening depends on the clarity of the ultimate outcome. The more the Iranian people are empowered, the more we can then tell the world, we as Iranians, unlike this regime, are committed to peace, are committed to stability, are committed to improve the lives of people by means of trade, commerce, cooperation, and everything else that this regime has taken away from us. Iran today should have been the next South Korea of the Middle East. Iran at the time had 5 times the GDP of South Korea. Today we have become North Korea. Not because we don't have the human resources, not because we don't have the natural resources, but because we have a governance that doesn't give a damn about the people and the livelihood, that have exploited our nation and its resources, that has impoverished our nation while funding radical extremist terrorist groups and proxies in the region and beyond, have outstretched their arms all the way to Latin America and are still standing there only because the delay in their collapse was a result of appeasement. The game changer is enough is enough. The game changer is these people deserve better. And they have proven that unlike this regime that hates the Western world in particular, and particularly the United States, that wants to wipe off a country off the map of the world, we as Iranians are committed to a different future. I went to Israel 2 years ago to show that we are the descendants of Cyrus the Great, who 25 centuries ago helped Jewish slaves be freed from the Babylonian government, helped them rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, a country that in the Second World War period gave refuge to Jews escaping the tyranny of Hitler, a country that, unlike this regime, wants to have cordial relationship with the state of Israel and the rest of our neighbors, a country that holds high in our principles and values the first Declaration of Human Rights that Cyrus the Great provided, that was inspiring people like Thomas Jefferson and was included into the American Bill of Rights and Constitution or Declaration of Independence. We have pride in that. And the children of Cyrus are not telling you that we are committed to that. That's when I talk about the Cyrus Accords is in that spirit. This is not me saying it. This is our nation, its culture, its national identity. And this is your truest friend that is now being clobbered, as you saw in that video, by a regime that is un-Iranian and is a threat to all of us. And this is what's at stake, simply at the end of the day. So it's better for all of us to now think of how different the world will be with a liberated Iran. And this is our moment in time. This is Iran's chance to finally, after 47 years, liberate itself. And I hear people from across the world. I see how much sympathy now there is for Iranians, from Australia to Argentina to Canada to Sweden to many, 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 many countries that are standing with the Iranian people. The people do. Now it's time for their governments to be online and on par with the expectation of various countries that are demonstrating their support for the Iranian people, and even they ask their respective governments to act. It's not just Iranians asking the outside world to act. People in different countries are beginning to ask their governments to act. And I hope that such governments hear their people and our people and stop listening to the regime that has been lying to them deceitfully and is hanging on to power by yet trying to find another opportunity to get out of this quagmire. Let's not give them that chance yet again.
I'm afraid last two questions, BBC Persia and then NDTV. BBC Persia first. Is that BBC Persia?
خشیار جانی به BBC Persian. شاهزاده من با اجازهتون فارسی سوال میپرسم. شما زمانی که تظاهرات بود در ایران در زمان پس از مرگ مهسا امینی صحبت از اتوبوسی کردید که از همه دعوت کردید سوار این اتوبوس بشن. الان در خیابون‌های ایران، تهران، مشهد، اصفهان، شهرهای کوچک و بزرگ اسم شما و خانواده شما را صدا می‌کند. آیا هنوز این دعوت وجود داره برای اینکه از دیگران بخواهید که سوار این اتوبوس بشن، همراهی کنند؟ و اینکه بعضی از بخش‌های جامعه ممکن هست که نگرانی‌هایی داشته باشند، قشر مذهبی یا بعضی از اقلیت‌ها، پیام شما برای اونها چه هست؟ خیلی ممنونم.
اولا بگم البته ببینید اون 4 شرایط اصلی رو که بیان کردم، یعنی هر کسی اساساً مسئله تمامیت ارضی ایران، مسئله جدای دین از حکومت، مسئله برابری شهروندان در مقابل قانون و حقوق فردی و نهایتاً حق انتخاب آزاد برای تعیین سرنوشت خودشون رو قبول و باور داشته باشند، مسافرین این به اصطلاح اتوبوس هستند و خواهند بود. برای همه افرادی که همگن و همسو با این حداقل اصول همبستگی هستند میتونن با هم کار بکنن. نمونهش این بود که چند ماه پیش در مونیخ در اون کنفرانس همبستگی داشتین، واضحا دیدید که انواع اقسام جریانات، چپ، راست، پادشاهی خواه، جمهوری خواه، نمایندگان اقوام، نمایندگان اقشار مذهبی، ورزشکاران، هنرمندان، همه گونه طیف در اونجا بودن، چون بر اساس این اصول توافق داشتن. ما اکنون کسانی داریم، فرض بفرمایید خیلی هم مشخصا موضع‌گیری کردن. من صحبت از مولوی عبدالحمید رو میکنم به عنوان نمونه و به عنوان مثال، به عنوان رهبر مذهبی سنی در منطقه بلوچستان که کاملا اعتقاد به این مسئله جدای از این از حکومت دارند و فکر میکنم بسیاری از روحانیون کشور ما نیست که جزوی از این نظام و حکومت نیستن این رو نیز باور دارن و دست کم نمایندگان اقواممون و مذاهب مختلفمون میدونن که از زمانی که این نظام سر کار اومد تبعیض جنسی، مذهبی و قومی رو شروع کرد. ما همچین مشکلی قبلا نداشتیم و ضمانت این در آینده و قانون اساسی که محافظ حقوق بشر شهروندان ایران باشه تمام این ضمانت‌ها رو مجددا برقرار خواهد کرد. بنابراین هیچ عاملی برای نگرانی یا از غافل عقب موندن یا حقوق برابر نداشتن آنن از بین میره و بنابراین در اون آینده خواهند تونست که در آزادی کامل و در برابری کامل شهروندان متعدد اون مملکت یکپارچه باشند. این تعهدی است، نه فقط تعهد من، با تعهد تمام کسانی که معتقد به اون رسول هستند و اکنون در این جبهه واحد با هم داریم کار میکنیم تا این مسئله رو پیش ببریم.
Last question, NDTV.
Thank you, Crown Prince. This is Lalit Jha from NDTV. People of Iran has had a strong historical, cultural, and civilizational ties with India. What is your message?
So you're talking a bit too fast. Could you please enunciate so I can hear you properly? Thank you.
Lalit Jha, representing NDTV and Indian News Channel.
Yes.
People of India has had a strong cultural, civilizational ties with Iran.
Yes.
Right. Two questions. What is your message to the people of India, and what kind of relationship would you like to have with India? Thank you.
Well, I remember the days where, of course, visits that we had, and I think Prime Minister Gandhi had visited Iran. I was very young at the time. So the relationship goes a long time. Culturally, it goes many, many years, but in modern history, we had very good relations, of course, with India. And it's natural, as I said, that a democratic Iran is committed to have the best possible relationship in the context of sovereignty and liberty, to have the best possible relationship with any country that adheres to the same values and can work with us and can partner with us in many different domains. And of course, it's a rich culture and a rich history that we observe in India as well. I think we can, as nations, be very proud of our heritage. And this could be a natural path to a very good bond and cooperation. Look, we have so many challenges to face in our planet. We have issues of energy, we have issues of population, we have issues of energy shortages, we have water crisis, we have so many different things. And that's where I think the world needs to really rise up and reach each other hands for cooperation. The four corners of this world have to remain connected. We cannot be introverted. We cannot be isolationists. We need to be able to work together. And the closer ties we have, the better we can address. India is one of the leading countries when it comes to technology, when it comes to expertise. I think these are the kind of things that will help us in every area that we need to focus on, new renewable energies, IT, whatever it is out there. And I'm looking forward to have our experts, our entrepreneurs, our business sector, and anybody else working very closely with our Indian counterpart. Hopefully, once we are freed, we can start an entirely new chapter.
No, I think that's it. I think thank you very much, though, for your question, sir. Thank you very much for coming today from the ladies and gentlemen of the press. Thank you, Prince Reza Pahlavi. We have some, as he's mentioned, we have some of his team and some experts here. Parmida, where are you? Parmida over there can field any interviews that people want to do with the experts, whether it's around the Prosperity Project or the situation in Iran, and we have human rights experts and a whole range of people that can do interviews if you would like to, and just speak to Parmida. Thank you, Prince.
Thank you all.